Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a congresswoman for the Democrats in Florida. She used to be the chair of the Democratic National Committee, and she was there on CNN to represent the Democrats and explain how they're back and better than ever, and how they're going to beat Trump, and they're going to champion all of their ideas, which are, well, I'm sure she'll tell us what their ideas are. Go ahead, take it away, Debbie.
Our friends over at the New York Times are doing a series periodically looking into the Democratic Party and the challenges facing the Democrats as you try to run into the next election with some kind of momentum. Shane Goldmacher, among others, is doing this research. And he talks about in an article over the weekend, a focus group led by a longtime Democratic researcher who asked some 250 people to describe or compare each party to an animal. And I want to read you what this found. Republicans are seen as apex predators like lions, tigers, and sharks, beasts that take what they want when they want it. Democrats are typically tagged as tortoises, slugs, or sloths, slow, plodding, passive. And then a little bit later, there was a respondee who said the Democrats are like a deer in headlights. How is it that you think that the Democratic Party has earned these descriptions?
John, I'm not focused on the animals that some New York Times reporter compares the political parties to. My constituents are human beings, and the human beings that I represent are facing devastating healthcare cuts, the most significant healthcare cuts that have been ever handed down by any administration. Almost 14 million people will lose their Medicaid coverage. Many hundreds of thousands more when you add the cuts to the Affordable Care Act. I represent the state that has the largest Affordable Care Act every single year. These are folks who they can get their health care insurance covered because of the Affordable Care Act, because of Medicaid. And as someone who knows that when you don't have your health, you don't have anything, I know how vital that is. So I'm focused on the humans I represent, not animal comparisons.
I will tell you, it was the voters who were making the comparison with animals, and this was a focus group. It wasn't the New York Times reporter coming up with these labels. This was a Democratic-led focus group to try to figure out perceptions of the parties.
Don, you said they were asked to compare the parties, so they were prompted to compare the parties to animals. That is ridiculous. I've watched a lot of focus groups, and I know that the people that I represent want me fighting for the humans, the families that I represent. They don't want Republicans transferring, more and more wealth to many more billionaires. They want to make sure that, like what Democrats did under Joe Biden, under a Democratic majority, we ensured that we cut taxes for the middle class, folks who put that money right back into the economy when they buy refrigerators with the windfall and other kinds of kinds of expenses. We made sure that we reduced prescription drug prices. We started to bring chip manufacturing back home. We passed the largest infrastructure and investment act in history. And now those jobs we're seeing come to fruition with rebuilding our infrastructure. That's what people want their government to do for them. They don't want a lawless dictator of a president who hires anti-Semites and who then acts like he's trying to fight to protect the Jewish community. The hypocrisy in this administration is appalling.
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, thank you so much for talking with us this morning.
I love that that was maybe quite possibly the strangest, most moronic interview I've ever seen. And John Berman at CNN can, instead of saying, ma'am, you clearly don't understand the question that I'm asking you. And could you follow along here instead of just repeating your rehearsed and memorized talking points that have been market tested with some focus group and just answer my question? Instead, he's like, thank you so much for joining us. That was profound. Is this really Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or is this some sort of AI thing that they've done? Now that they're doing their interviews from Skype, sitting at their sofa on their laptop at home, you can never tell if these things are real or not. That could very well have been some sort of Debbie what's-her-name Schultz bot that had been put up. That said, though, she's looking good, isn't she, Congresswoman Schultz? She's never looked better. Let's go through this question and answer one more time, because is she just not paying attention? I do love that she immediately slipped back into the talking points. No, what's really important is they're cutting Medicaid and people are going to go without health care. It's like the only people who are getting Medicaid cut are able-bodied men who shouldn't be getting Medicaid because it's not designed for them. This whole purpose of the people who are not going to get Medicaid because of the waste, fraud, and abuse that's being removed from the system are people who are never supposed to have Medicaid. Illegal immigrants are, yes, that's true. It's true. Just so you know, it's not a lie that people are going to lose Medicaid. Illegal immigrants who are not supposed to legally be getting Medicaid, they will lose their Medicaid. In fact, they should go home and get the free health care from the country they came from because they're not supposed to get it here. And so that they're now going to be removed. You know who else is going to not get Medicaid? People who are also double dipping and getting Medicaid as well as Obamacare subsidized health care. They should also not get any Medicaid. They should be taken off the list. Also, people who are getting it in 2 different states and benefiting across state lines, they also should not be getting because they're defrauding the system as well. There are quite a few people who are not going to be getting Medicaid. The people who are defrauding the system. Those are the ones, but it doesn't matter. She's a bot. She just slips into her AI talking points that have been programmed into her cerebral cortex. But beyond that, beyond the inanity of a politician getting up there and just disingenuously, inauthentically repeating the same thing over and over again. You know how the same New York Times article also talked about how they're going through this huge $20 million sort of study to figure out how Democrats can talk to men again. You know, and I guarantee you, you know, oh, we need to come up with our own left-wing Joe Rogan. There is a left-wing Joe Rogan. His name is Joe Rogan. But you so disenfranchised him and offended him and pissed him off that he decided, oh, these guys are full of shit. I'm going to go back and maybe look at some other politicians and some other ideas. You already had him, guys. You just screwed with him because you're so bad. But it doesn't matter. You don't come up with some sort of brilliant, wonderful podcaster or some sort of fantastic messaging to male voters because you did a $20 million study to figure out how to talk to voters. No, what you need to do is just be authentic, be a normal human being, which Debbie Wasserman Schultz here obviously proves she's incapable of being. That we're sick of the hear the question, reject it, and then immediately flip to your talking points that you've memorized about Medicaid cuts, because you've been saying this about Republicans for literally 50 years. Nobody buys it anymore. Nobody believes it. It doesn't work. It's so fake and phony. Just be real, be normal, but she can't. And she's so fake and she's so inauthentic that she specifically doesn't even listen to the question that's being posed because she's so excited to get to her talking points answer. So listen to the question again.
Our friends over at the New York Times are doing a series periodically looking into the Democratic Party and the challenges facing the Democrats as you try to run into the next election with some kind of momentum. Shane Goldmacher, among others, is doing this research. And he talks about in an article over the weekend, a focus group led by a longtime Democratic researcher who asked some 250 people to describe or compare each party to an animal.
All right, so you can understand this because you have an intelligence and attention level higher than a second grader. Not fair to second graders, kindergartners. Because honestly, a second grader can understand this. It's literally the kind of topic a second grader would be asked to discuss in second grade. Voters were asked in a focus group to compare the two political parties to an animal. That's all. You know, like Democrats are jackasses and Republicans are elephants, but set those aside. What do the parties evoke to you? Can you describe them as a type of animal? That's all. It's kind of simple, actually. Look at the blank look on Debbie Wasserman Schultz's face. It's like I'm sorry, don't look too deeply. You will turn into stone. Medusa thing. All right. So now let's hear how the people in the focus group compared the parties to animals.
And I want to read you what this found. Republicans are seen as apex predators like lions, tigers, and sharks, beasts that take what they want when they want it. Democrats are typically tagged as tortoises, slugs, or sloths, slow, plodding, passive.
Now, again, this isn't how I would necessarily conduct an interview, but I think it's a legitimate question. Here's a Democrat who has a show on CNN, and he's got a Democrat as a guest who used to head up the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, back in the day, saying, listen, you know, this is what voters think. They think that Republicans are apex predators. They compare them to lions and tigers and sharks, and Democrats are being compared to slugs or sloths or tortoises. don't you think the party has an image problem? How do you rectify that? What do you have to say? It's a simple question. It's not that complex.
And then a little bit later, there was a respondee who said the Democrats are like a deer in headlights. How is it?
By the way, it's kind of ironic that he said to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, deer in headlights. Quick aside, there's this website called Media Matters. They like watch conservative commentators and they find things that you say and they make a bill. Oh, I can't believe this person said this. And it was set up by John Podesta and George Soros. And it's against the First Amendment and free speech and conservatives being able to have a platform or a voice anywhere. Anyway, if you go to Media Matters and search on my name, one of the things you're going to find, it's from many years ago, but I was a guest on a Fox Business show, I think. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they asked me to comment on something Debbie Wasserman Schultz had said about Republicans, Mitt Romney or something. It's that far back. And I described Debbie Wasserman Schultz as, people have a deer in the headlights look. Well, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has a possum in the headlights look. You know, when you turn around a corner at night and you've got a possum staring back in your headlights like it's some sort of zombie beast. So I just find it ironic that that John Berman says to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democrats are deer in the headlights, when I actually likened Debbie Wasserman Schultz to a dying zombie possum in the headlights. Just a quick aside. But that was one of my early claims to fame. Thank you very much.
That you think that the Democratic Party has earned these descriptions?
John, I'm not focused on the animals that some New York Times reporter compares the political parties to. My constituents are human beings.
I mean, it's just so bad and so awkward and so fake. She's either a moron and had no understanding of the question that was just posed to her, or she's just a lying freak who just wants to stick to her fake talking points. Or certainly it could be both. But either way, I think the summation here is obvious. The Democrats continue to be in huge trouble. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know what to communicate. And even in a friendly territory like John Berman on CNN, they completely fumble and blow whatever opportunity they have to say anything. Literally, Jasmine Crockett is the best they've got right now. And it all boils down to one issue. Like we said for so many years now, they stand for nothing. All they've got is opposition to Donald Trump. That is not how you build a political party. And you're seeing the fruits of that right now. Listen, for the midterms, that might be enough. But in terms of the long-term health of one of the two great parties in America, it's serious problems. And Debbie, what's her name, Schultz, she represents it perfectly in that segment.